Welcome everyone to Automotive Inspire, the interview series where we talk to people working in auto tech about their stories, what inspires them and why they've chosen to work in this industry. I'm Caroline Hicks, the Director of Events and Community at Informa Tech Automotive Group, and I'm joined here today by Brandy Goolsby, Product and Solutions Marketing Director at Wind River Systems. Prior to joining Wind River, Brandy held roles at Ford Motor Company, Stellantis and General Motors, and she graduated from Michigan State University with a degree in electrical engineering, both a bachelor's and a master's. Welcome, Brandy. Oh, I think Brandy might have frozen. Bear with us. Sorry, folks, we're just going to see if we can get Brandy back. Okay. I think we're back.
I am so sorry.
It's okay. These things happen. We've done a lot of virtual events in the last 2.5 years, and these things happen when you least expect them. So do not worry. You can see and hear us?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm hoping everyone caught. Yes, we can. I'm hoping everyone caught our intro. So I'm just going to go straight into our first question. So working in automotive, I've met some people who work in automotive who say it was what they wanted from, the age of 5. It was, they loved cars. That was always their goal. Was it like that for you? Was that something you aimed for as a child?
Well, it's actually an interesting story. Would have to say directly no, because what's interesting about my story is when I was growing up and even in my teenage years, I was typically like, I didn't want to work for the automotive industry just because I had family members and friends of family that worked in the industry. So I was looking for industries that were outside of automotive that I could, begin my career with and get more experience knowing right outside of automotive. So for me personally, automotive was not a goal. However, what's interesting about this is that automotive was the building block that helped develop me from a knowledge perspective and from a career professional perspective. It really gave me my start and helped me to understand different career paths that you could take within the industry.
Okay, interesting. And so when you were looking at degrees and trying to decide which, what you wanted to study, you chose electrical engineering. What was the thought process behind that? How did you get to that choice?
Well, what's interesting about that is, so I have two older sisters, and one of my sisters, who I love both of them, but my oldest sister Kelly, I adored. She was like she was my biggest cheerleader, and whatever she did, I wanted to do. So she was actually the catalyst that ignited the fire and the interest in engineering. But I have to say, in terms of what cultivated that interest, was really a lot of the engineering programming that Detroit area had for inner city use and actually outside of the city as well. So I was able to participate in Wayne State's math camp and also Detroit area pre-college engineering program. And what was instrumental about those events was the fact that they not only trained you and helped you understand how to take math and science and apply it, but you were able to see how inanimate objects could come to life. And that just illuminated a whole new world for me. It really ignited that creativity, that creation, that engineering type of insight and understanding that I wanted to unlock and cultivate in a collegiate setting. So that's what really got me on the path to electrical engineering.
That's fascinating that those kinds of programs, I mean, it's really good to hear that they make that kind of difference. And I can really see, certainly from my perspective, I never got that far with maths. It's just not really my thing. But actually, the thing I found hardest about it was I just don't know what I'm going to do with this. Like, why am I learning all of this stuff that I can't really, I'm writing it on paper, but I cannot see how I would apply it. So I think that's brilliant. And when you were, obviously you were doing your studies and you took it one step further, did your master's degree, and you were looking for roles, what was it about General Motors that made you think that was where you wanted to get your start?
Man, General Motors, they were at the time, right? It was like, and even now, a lot of these different automotive companies, they're innovators on so many levels that the vehicle itself really is a technology innovation platform. And there's so much that you can do with the vehicle, especially now, right? But what drew me to General Motors was really the product, the opportunity, because and more the opportunity, because I had just newly graduated from Michigan State and I had my master's in electrical engineering, and I took more coursework in controls and systems engineering, but I still had a very broad like umbrella of what I would say skill sets in the electrical engineering realm. So I wanted to hone in on what that meant. And so General Motors offered a college graduate and training program, so you could rotate into different functional areas under engineering. So I went from electrical design to vehicle test systems, where I literally worked on systems that tested the product. So I didn't necessarily directly work on the product, but the systems that were confirming that these vehicles were in fact roadworthy. So that was build them to build that up. So it was incredible. So I really had a good time. there. And then my last assignment at General Motors was in controls in strategy. So that was fascinating to get into software.
And you have sort of, would it be fair to say you've kind of not moved away from engineering, but you now have a slightly more strategic role, and is that something you see yourself kind of taking forward as such? Because I imagine with engineering there are different ways that you can go. You can go very much into the technical side of things, or you can apply what you know in a strategic setting, but perhaps there aren't that many roles where you do both.
Well, you're exactly right. So now my role is more like on the, I would say, upfront business aspect of right now I'm at Wind River, and it's a technology based company, right? Whereas previously in automotive, I was working in strategy and planning, which was more upfront, and that downstream where you get more into the execution of rolling the product off of the assembly line and putting it into the marketplace. So for me, that transition actually took place when I went from Ford Motor Company, or excuse me, from General Motors over to Ford, where I got more into the upfront part of the business and really getting into concept creation, strategy creation, setting up that vision, and working with effectively, the cream of the crop in terms of how do you set a strategic vision for product offerings that consumers will be, delighted with, right? How do you create that surprise and delight type of experience for them? And so getting into that detail and getting into the business equation, the market equation of how you build something compelling that will help drive business growth and revenue growth for the company. And that's ultimately where I wanted to land. I wanted to be more on the business side up front, and understanding more of that aspect of it as you develop, as I developed. I wanted to get more into that aspect of the automotive industry. And that's the beauty of the industry, right? It preserves choice. You can literally kind of identify what's your path as far as where you want to go. And we'll probably get into that, but that's one thing that I loved about the industry in my experiences to date, is that I've been able to navigate into different spaces because of career choices and having more, I would say, purpose-driven, intentional-driven approaches to my career.
I think it's an interesting thing to reflect on, because you could initially look at your early stages of your career and think that kind of puts Brandy in a box. Engineering, is it a linear thing? Do you just go up through the ranks? But actually, it's a very there's lots of different paths that you can take, and it seems like you've got a lot of opportunity to experience the different sides of automotive and work in all of these different teams, and really round out your experience. If you were, when you were starting out, or if you were talking to a young person now who was considering a career in STEM and engineering and those kinds of facets of the automotive industry, what advice would you give them in terms of things they should be doing in order to ensure their success?
Ensure their success, I would definitely advise them on number one. I would let them know, like, from an automotive perspective, there's a lot of exciting things to be part of, and you definitely can be part of a solution. You have to think about what skills, talents, resources, interests you have, and where does that fit in terms of you being part of this solution within the automotive industry. Right now, there's a lot of disruption across the board, right? You have this activity where automotive has been experiencing change for the last couple of decades, right? Going from lean manufacturing to managing the complexity of the supply chain. But now you have this next layer, which is all about what I would say, connectivity, automated and autonomous driving. Then you also have electrification and all these different market forces that are driving change and literally turning automotive on its head. So this is an exciting time to be part of that solution. So in order for you to successfully navigate your career path in that space, you really have to think about what's your end goal? What is it that you want to achieve? So I would recommend kind of creating a career map, right? So thinking in terms of what's your 3, 5, and 10-year goal, and then identifying what skills and experiences do you need to get to where you are seeing yourself in 3, 5, and 10 years. And as you look at that and you kind of do this pause and reflect to identify what those gaps are, how do you build those right experiences? But you're going to need like what I would call a board of advisors to help you in terms of giving you guidance, counsel, wisdom through the process, through the journey as you work through these different experiences that you involve with. And that's what I did. I have a board of advisors that are on speed dial, and I use them consistently in terms of just bouncing ideas and thoughts and where I want to see my next take place.
Yeah, I think, it sounds like you've been very successful in owning your own development, but also then, getting a network around you who can help you. Because I think we talked when we were talking before we came online about the fact that really you do have to be responsible for your own development, and you're the only person who probably is going to hold yourself back in lots of situations. But at the same time, these mentors, mentees, having that network you can bounce ideas off is incredibly valuable. And would you say those mentors have been, I suppose, I'm sure they have been helpful in terms of your being an African American woman working in engineering and automotive? It's sometimes not the most diverse place in the world. I do think we've come a long way and it's getting a lot better. But how has your experience been from that perspective?
Right. And so one of the things that I constantly think about, right, is you have to not think about the fact that you are a Black woman, right? Because that will become very isolating, because you are going to, I mean, the numbers are improving, but it's still very few and far between. And a lot of times you are still going to be in the room. But that's okay. That's part of, say, how you grow and how you resiliency, right? In terms of not allowing race, your culture, your gender to be a way in which you bring diversity to the table, a way in which you bring kind of a view and perspective to help with the innovation that for.
Yeah, I think that's, it in lots of ways, I think it's about accepting yourself for who you are and then using that as to your advantage rather than seeing it as a negative, as you said. And it can make a difference. It's almost like a USP
Exactly.
in some ways.
You have to see it. Yeah, you have to see it as a.
You're breaking up a little bit.
I was just saying you have to see it as a positive. Absolutely.
Definitely.
A little,
And in terms of, oh no, you're okay. So when you're, your career so far, as you said, you've moved more into the strategic side of things and the upfront business side of things. And I know that your position at Wind River is very much centered around collaboration and alliances and, connecting people to accelerate progress. What advice would you have for others about how to collaborate effectively within automotive? I think it's something that we see a lot when we're doing our event research. It comes up a huge amount. Automotive needs to collaborate more. There would be more progress if people were more open, and it feels like a huge kind of priority for the industry as a whole. So how have you gone about doing that within Wind River?
So as far as like collaborating, so once I got to Wind River, part of my role was doing ecosystem and market development. So that's where I really started to apply what I would call solutions thinking. And in doing solutions thinking, you take kind of what our offering was, which is more or less foundational tech, right? And identify how do you make that or augment that with other technologies in the ecosystem of automotive, because at the time I was working in the automotive BU of Wind River, and in identifying how do you create that 1 + 1 = 3? How do you create that realized consumer value? And so, in order for you to do that, not only do you need to collaborate internal to the organization and having those iterative, close communications with engineering, product management, marketing to really tell that compelling story, right? In terms of how it shows up at trade shows and events, but then working externally with that partner company and identifying, okay, how do we want to bring this together and what's the realized value that we're aiming for in terms of what we want to bring to the consumer around how we can resolve pain points and challenges that is affecting their business or affecting, what they're trying to achieve in this given time frame.
And have you found there's a huge difference? Because I know that you at Wind River, you have worked not just in automotive, but across, is it medical, telco, industrial manufacturing? How is automotive different or similar to some of these other industries?
Well, it was interesting in this time that we're in, as far as market disruption. Everybody is being disrupted as far as software and digital, and the value that's going to be realized by these industries in consumers is going to be software defined. The value is going to come straight from software. And so, what's beautiful about my experience to date is that having started off in automotive, which is the space I knew and understood and loved, it was easy for me to take that software knowledge and experience and spread it and scale it across all these other industries, right? And so, not only did I work in those other industries under the umbrella of ecosystem and market development, so working in, telco space as well as energy and the other ones that you name, but then now I was given the opportunity to work in marketing. So now I get to tell the compelling story, right? How can you position these customer solutions in a way that resonates with them and meets them in their journey to help drive traffic and awareness of how our tech, right, in the array of all these different types of technologies that you could choose from, could help enable and support them in what they're trying to achieve.
I think you're quite a unique, you have quite a unique skill set, because there's not that many people who can take something that is very engineering focused or technical and then translate it in a way that means that it can be understood by people who aren't in that space every day and really focus on the benefits. And so I suppose that's something that is really key for your story as such. I mean, is that something that you said you always your goal was always to go to the strategic side of things? Was that even as a student when you were studying, you were studying engineering, you always knew that was where you wanted to take that knowledge?
I knew I wanted bigger than just doing, and there's nothing wrong with like engineering and being technically, strong in a given area or a set of areas. But I knew I wanted to be more on the upfront business side. But I knew I needed to have prowess, right, in terms of really understanding the details and how these elements come together. And then translating that, and that's a perfect word, in a way that anyone could understand, right? From the my niece who's 14 to the corporate CEO, and making it in a way that they translates into business value. And that's the key, is really, how do you tell that compelling story? How do you make that real for them so that it makes sense and it's tangible and it's clear?
And would you say that is a skill that I mean, it's not really, I say it's not really something you can study, but is that a skill that you was included and talked about when you were at university, or is that really something that has come through your career at all of these different automakers in terms of learning how to take that knowledge and translate it?
So this goes back to what I was sharing earlier around your career path, right? So understanding kind of where you want to go. And I knew earlier on that I'm a extrovert. So I tend to connect well with others. So I knew I wanted to be more on the customer facing side, but I also understood that there was a level of depth that I needed to understand technically, right? From a fundamental perspective, so that I don't need to know all technical details to the nth degree, but I need to understand it enough to be able to speak to it and to put a wrapper around it so that it's clear what the value is of that relative to the system or device that it would go into. And in terms of answering your question around this not being a skill set that you can study, it's not, but it is something that you will inherently and I think innately start to develop as you navigate through your experiences, right? Because if you decide to say, technical, you'll go that way. But if you decide that where you want to land is really more on the business and strategy side, you're going to naturally begin to, I would say, develop the soft and the hard skills to be able to be positioned to do strategy and planning, to do product marketing, to be able to play in this space in a way that's effective and efficient for the company that you're with.
Yeah, I suppose in lots of ways, actually, you are just naturally, you're right, propelled forward by the things that you're interested in. So if you're interested in that strategic side and you're asking the right questions, then the skills and the answers kind of come together as such.
Exactly.
So in your professional career so far, what is it that you enjoy most about working in automotive?
Wow. Well, I don't work just in automotive.
I was going to say, I know you don't work just in automotive, but let's pretend that you do.
I'm across verticals, but what I enjoy most about working across the industries in general is really interfacing with the people, really having that conversation, talking about what's real and how we can collaborate, whether I'm talking with another technology provider or if I'm interfacing with a customer who's sharing a business issue or a business challenge with me. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind that I think this is something that could fit in what you're describing. But of course, we need to kind of go through what I would call like vision map and identify is this the right play for you, right? In terms of how you're trying to build out a solution that fits into your business.
I mean, I love that answer because that's the whole point of this interview series is that, we talk a lot about the technology in automotive and all the innovative things that are happening. And we focus quite a lot on that side of things. But actually, all of that only happens because of the people behind it. And It's the people that make things really special. And it's the people who work in automotive that start all of this innovation.
Absolutely. Like the people that's the biggest asset this industry has. And honestly, making those connections and genuine connections is how the product comes to life, is how you have innovation, is how you drive beyond incremental thinking.
Exactly. And on that note, I see we've been live for 28 minutes and I think we were half an hour long. So we've done very well.
Okay.
So I think all that remains, Brandy, is for me to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really, really great discussion. I've loved hearing more about you and your career. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you next week.
I'm looking forward to seeing you too.
All of you who've tuned in, you can meet both Brandy and I on site at Autotech Detroit next week on June 8th and 9th at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi in Michigan. And Brandy is going to be in our connectivity conference track, chairing a panel debate about entertainment in automotive. And you'll be able to find me on the Inspire and Innovation stage doing some more automotive Inspire interviews with other women who are working in auto tech. So if you head over to www.autotechdetroit.com, you can register for your free pass there. And we're also hosting a networking reception on the evening of the 8th at Bar Louis. And that is with our partners Covisa, of whom Brandy is a board member. So we'll be posting the details of that on our LinkedIn and also on our event website. So take a look for that as well and make sure that you get yourself signed up. And we're looking forward to seeing you there.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brandy. Bye-bye.